pole position to his 4th victory overall and 2nd of this season. Carlos Sainz is the king of Mexico with a stunning victory for Ferrari, while Lando Norris battled Max Verstappen on his way to 2nd, and Charles Leclerc continued Ferrari's stunning day, as we have seen potentially significant movement in both title fights. This is truly Formula One at its finest. Welcome to your post-race show. Alongside me, James Hinchcliffe, both still reeling from what we have seen, but we're going to bring you quite immediate driver reaction, because standing by, waiting patiently in the wings, is Pierre Gasly, who has scored points for Alpine. Pierre, a point for Alpine. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Brilliant qualifying yesterday and then getting it done in the race, which I know is what didn't quite happen for you guys in Austin. You got it done here today. How did you do it?
Yeah, I must say I'm very happy. It's been quite a long time since we scored point. I think last time was in Zandvoort, so we had a pretty tough few races, and since Austin we managed to bring some new parts on the car. Performance seems to be better. Another Q3 this weekend, which definitely set us up for the race. So I'm happy we got the learning from Austin, managed to have a stronger pace on this race, and managed to hang on to the points.
When you guys brought these new upgrades to Austin, was it balance? Did it give you more confidence, or was it just pure performance?
Well, a bit of both, to be fair. Like balance got a bit better, a bit more performance all around. You know, low speed, high speed. So it's just fine margins. But in that midfield, honestly, I think we're like 8 potential cars between P9 and P17. So it just shows how important it is to execute perfect weekends. Austin with a very strong quali, 7s, but then in the race we were just didn't manage to make the hard work, and this weekend we another good quali, and then the race was better. So in the end it was the best we could, because the Haas were so competitive, so I'm pleased with P10. Yeah.
Pierre, I know it's not what you want to be fighting for, and it's been a really tricky season for yourself and for Alpine generally, but that point today has brought you 3 points behind Williams in that battle for PA, and given the context of where you have been, that must be, I guess, momentum, confidence for you guys to take forward.
Yeah, it's been a tough year,
yeah.
But then yeah, I'm pleased to see the guys keep pushing. You know, they haven't stopped. You know, hence the upgrades on the car, which put us a bit more in the fight, and I think all the learnings we're getting will be useful for 2025. So on one side I'm focused on 2025, on the other side I know that it's not going to change our season whether we finish 8s or 9s, but if I can get that for the team, we'll definitely go for it. And as you say, 3 points is enough to keep the Williams guys a bit under pressure until the end of the year.
What about Brazil? How do you feel you yourself will do in Brazil? How much are you looking forward to that? And what about the car?
I had my first podium in Brazil, so you know it's always a special place to me going back there. I mean, I'm happy to see we've managed to find some consistency. Austin with that Q3, another Q3 yesterday. So yeah, hopefully we can be again in the mix, and yeah, who knows, might be able to get another point there.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for waiting as well. Appreciate it. Well done to Pierre Gasly. P10, 1 point for Alpine, and all important in that battle for P8 and P9. But we head back towards the top of the standings in this Mexico City Grand Prix, and that is Carlos Sainz. From pole position, it's not easy to win here from pole. Stats say it's tricky, and it hasn't been done that often in the last 8 races or so. But he got it done today. And importantly, he closed that gap between McLaren and Ferrari to 29 points. They've now overtaken Red Bull as well. Ferrari are on a charge.
They're on a hot streak, there's no doubt about it, as is Carlos. I mean, you know, Leclerc was right there as well. Both Ferraris have just been incredible the last few weeks. And as you said, I mean, winning from pole here is tough. Statistically, it's been hard to do. The last 11 races, Lando has been the only driver to win from pole. So even just in Formula One this year, it's been tough to convert pole positions to win. So, you know, extra sweet for Carlos to get that win here. You know, we've talked a lot about how his days at Ferrari are numbered. He knows it's coming to an end. His chances to win Grand Prix are probably whittling down, at least for the short term, with that move to Williams. But no, it was a flawless performance. It wasn't easy. Driving across the grass in turn 1, had to make a pass for the lead. You know, he had to work for it, keep his teammate behind him in that first stint, but just absolutely flawless execution.
Yeah, and as he said in Parc Fermé as well, he was really annoyed at himself, wasn't he, for allowing Max through, not allowing Max through, but Max getting through at the start, and what occurred there. But what a move it was, coming in to overtake Max and getting it done on the first time of asking. And I'm going to allow you to hold that thought because, well, no, we'll run it through here. Go on, just talk us through this.
Yeah, I think he caught Max a little bit, you know, off guard. He was in line with the Red Bull right up until the brake zone, and then decided to pop out just last minute. But it just shows again the confidence that he has in that Ferrari. We've talked a lot about it the last 2 weeks. He's just so at one with this car right now. We saw more aggressive moves out of him when it comes to racecraft in Austin, and he just doubled down again here, this time the pass for the lead. So just very, very well done.
He seems to come even more alive, doesn't he, when he's on a low grip track. We'll come back to Ferrari in just a moment. We are now going to welcome in our next driver. We're right next to the media pen here, so they're coming in thick and fast. It is Kevin Magnussen. Congratulations, Kev. P7, equaling your best result since Bahrain 2022. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, relieved. I think it's in, these weekends when everything just clicks, it's a really nice feeling. And, this race I was able to just push really hard and manage the tires at the same time. I just got them into that sweet window where it just works.
You've seen sometimes, the Haas has had that single lap pace. The race pace is definitely better this year than last year, but with that exceptional performance in qualifying, how confident were you guys of being able to stay where you were and collect this many points?
I don't know if you can really be that confident because it's so tight in the midfield that it could easily swing around if the next track suits the other team better, then it swings around. It's only a couple of tenths. In the race, we had a big advantage to the other midfield cars. But as I said, I just think the car had that balance where you were just able to get that next level of grip in the tires and make it last. So we put the car on track on Friday, and we basically haven't changed it at all. So it's just one of those weekends. I think you know what I'm talking about, when it just works.
Yeah, that must give you such confidence and such comfort in the car and safety around you that you know what you've got is going to fly underneath you. You're now 10 points ahead of VCARB in the fight for P6. This has been a big swing. What does that mean to you?
A lot. I mean, it's not always easy to score these points. So I think 10 points with 4 races to go, right? It's not comfortable yet, but it's a really important one.
With those 4 races you got, sorry, Laura, the 4 races that are coming up, is there one in particular that you think you guys are going to be particularly strong at, or is it just too tough to tell right now?
It's too tough to tell. I mean, these last 2 races we were on high downforce, and I think the whole rest, the beginning of the year we thought medium downforce was kind of our thing. That's where we thought we were the strongest compared to everyone else. And the last 2 races on high downforce we were really strong. So sometimes we surprise ourselves.
Kev, as things stand, you potentially have 4 Grand Prix and 2 sprint races left in Formula One. How at peace are you with that, given how well you are driving, how well the Haas team seem to be operating as well?
I'm quite easy. It's, I've been in this situation before, 2 times actually. So it's kind of like, it's not a surprise, it's not uncomfortable. If it is the last, so be it. What can I do? I had some amazing years and amazing opportunities to have a career in Formula One, and I can still stand here and say it's not definitely over, and what an awesome position to be in. No matter what, if you look back, you have to be thankful for the opportunities and just enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, your last comeback was Bahrain 2022, where you finished P7, so...
P5.
P5, sorry, yes. P5. Thank you, Kev.
All right, thank you.
So you never know. Thank you very much. Well done today. Appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Great stuff. We've got drivers lining up for us, so we're now going to welcome in Franco Colapinto. Looking forward to speaking to Franco. Welcome in. P12 it was ultimately, Franco, and I'd imagine the reception, first of all, to you here has been incredible. How have you dealt with the pressure of getting this race done, getting the best out of yourself, and dealing with what you're expecting here?
Yeah, it was something I never experienced before. It's the first time I've seen something like this in a racetrack, and it just motivates you. It gives you that power to give a little bit more and to give a little bit extra. And it was very nice to see all the Mexican fans, the Argentinians, the Brazilians. There was people from every part of South America, of Latin America. And I think that connection that there is now in motorsport between the countries, between Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, that all of them are supporting me, and all of us are supporting Checo as well. It's something very nice to see that you don't see in other sports, and it just feels like a little step forward as a society, In football, they are all fighting with each other, and I don't know, if Argentina plays Spain, maybe the Brazilians want Spain to win, and that doesn't happen here, And it's something I think very special.
Look, you've had such a phenomenal run since your Grand Prix debut a few rounds ago. Your expectation must have jumped up so high immediately being on the pace. Starting where you did today, you got back into the top 12. You've maintained your finishing. You've never finished outside of the top 12 in a Grand Prix. But do you leave today a little disappointed? Do you feel like there was maybe more out there?
Not today. I left tomorrow. Tomorrow, no. I left yesterday. Disappointed. It was a tough quali for us. The car was not in a good position. I was sliding a lot. The rears here overheat like crazy, and I had a snap in 3, had a snap in 4, 5, 6, and like this you carry it through a lap. It's like a snowball that you create, and the car was quite out of the window. The balance was very oversteer, and just it didn't feel good yesterday. But today, I think with tools, with our balance, we fixed it. We did the best we could, and closing a bit the tools was a job well done by the team. We did a good strategy. I think we maximized the package we had. Starting from P16 was always going to be difficult. A track that overheat so much the brakes, the tires, the engines. It's tough to do any progress, But we did, and I think. Just if we could have gone through that dirty air a bit quicker, we could have had a chance, of course, with Stroll, but I'm looking a bit more forward to Pierre. So yeah, a bit disappointed, but it's coming soon Brazil and new opportunities.
And Franco, you had some brilliant battles out there, well and truly getting stuck in. One with Oscar Piastri. You did have that one, obviously, with Liam Lawson. It was a 10-second penalty. Just talk us through some of those battles on track. 10-second penalty means you still say P12, though, of course.
Yeah, I don't fully agree. I think it's something similar to what happened with Lando and Max in Austin. It's one of those that the one that is inside pushes you off the track. I was, I think, slightly ahead at the apex, and then he braked on the dust and ran wide, and pushed me off. And then he broke his front wing alone. So look, it's not something to complain, but just I think the drivers need to try and understand what we can do better to not get these penalties that sometimes come. I think very favorable for the guy that is on the inside, and doesn't leave much room of what to do for the guy on the outside, and just need to try to understand that better as for all of us as drivers, for those penalties not to be coming constantly those. I think it's more related to what happened to Liam, that he broke his front wing. That is not my fault, and they looked more at that consequence. That's why the 10-second penalties. Look, I think Stewart shouldn't be looking at the consequence of what happened after the little incident that we had in T1. So just happy to keep the P12, of course. Sad to not be on the points, but the new opportunities, as I said, coming back in Brazil, and a lot of Argentinians there, so looking forward to that.
Franco, I think so many watching at home, so many of us watching you race here, feel pretty gutted that you haven't got a seat next season, because we've had so much fun watching you. What can you tell us about your future? Because there are a fair few rumours swirling that you may be in the Red Bull family next season. What can you say?
No, at the moment I don't understand much of what they are talking about. I don't know from where it came from. I don't have any seat for next year, and at the moment I'm not racing Formula One. I'm probably going to be racing somewhere else. So look, it's gonna be maybe a year that I'm not gonna be here, but I hope to be showing that I deserve a seat here enough to come back in 26 or 27. It is my goal, and it's why I'm doing the best I can race after race. That's why yesterday I was disappointed with the result, and just trying to do my best session after session to try and show that I deserve a seat here.
You're definitely doing that. Thank you. Franco, finally, just a word for your fans.
In Spanish.
Please, we'd love you to. Yeah, down the barrel. There's so many Spanish fans, Argentinian fans out there watching you. They'd love to hear you.
Bueno, gracias a todos los argentinos, mexicanos. You should learn Spanish.
Yeah, you got to keep up with
it.
You
I'd love to. I'll get on Duolingo and I'll learn.
Un placer haber tenido todo este apoyo todas estas carreras. La verdad que me siento muy orgulloso, muy feliz de todo el apoyo que recibí. Es una fuerza enorme la que me están dando para seguir adelante, para seguir luchando después de días difíciles como el de ayer. Y agradecido. Espero verlos en Brasil. Espero que estemos ahí todos apoyando y tengamos un buen fin de semana, que lo disfruten mucho y que sigamos para adelante juntos. Chao, chao.
Muchas gracias. I will learn, Franco. I promise. Thank you. Well done today. Oh, great stuff. Let's hear then from his team boss, James Vowles. He's with Marietta Evans.
James, first of all, Alex has had a very difficult weekend. Could we have your thoughts on that moment with Tsunoda put an end to his race?
Yeah, I think for me it's a racing incident whereby three cars, which is Gasly was in the inside, then closing into Alex at the same time as Tsunoda was going on the outside, and both cars making contact with Alex, and that's it, it's game over. It's a hard, bitter pill to swallow, because we had a car today that I know would have been scoring points, and it's a very difficult weekend for Alex.
Colapinto keeps making progress, and everybody keeps talking about will we see him next year on the grid. Would you be prepared to release him if RB offered him a race seat?
I think in all of these things at the moment, let's start with the basics. He has earned his place on the grid, and what we want to help with that is finding him a place in that regard. What it looks like, I can't tell you at the moment because A, it's very sensitive, and B, there's really not a lot to discuss right now.
Thank you very much, James. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
I mean, look, a decent day in a sense for Colapinto. Obviously no points, and I know he'll have wanted a lot more than that. Great to have him on to discuss his thoughts. For Alex Albon, it was a race that finished far, far too soon. Let's go back to the start then. That long run down to turn one just tempts drivers into moves that potentially they can't make stick, and the gap for Yuki Tsunoda just closed out.
Yeah, it was so close to being a brilliant move, but unfortunately, it's like we made the joke, I think, last week, the 4 most expensive words in motorsports. I thought I had it, right? And he had just not quite enough room. Had the Alpine of Pierre Gasly not been on the right-hand side of Alex Albon, he would have given him enough room, but Albon really just squeezed there, forced to close that gap just by an inch or two. It wasn't much, it's barely contact, but at that closing rate, you could see the result, the damage pretty significant. Look, it's a racing incident, that's how the stewards saw it. You do probably have to put a fraction more of the blame on Yuki just for trying to go for that gap that could potentially have closed. It's just a tough break for both of those drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. As ever here in Mexico City, we had drama off the start. Max Verstappen then took the lead through turn one. Carlos Sainz going wide, giving the place back. It wasn't until lap 9 we saw Carlos Sainz make his way through Max Verstappen. The first time he had to get it done. Here it is now. What we then had was the most, that's the move, isn't it, there?
That's the first one into turn 4. Side by side, very similar look to what we saw in turn 12 in Austin a week ago. Bit of a different result. This time Lando giving the place back, and then here, sorry, not giving the place back, and then here into turn 7. It's barely a brake zone in a Formula One car, and Max just absolutely didn't brake at all, fired it in. Neither car anywhere close to making the corner, and I think everybody would agree, absolutely the right call from the stewards to give a penalty for, frankly, for both. It's interesting to try to get into the mind of Max Verstappen through this. Does he know he's going to cop the penalties at this point? But if it stops Lando from being able to get closer to attacking the Ferraris, ultimately that's going to help him in the championship fight. He didn't end up that far behind Lando on track position-wise, even after 20 seconds worth of penalties. But think of how much time Lando lost and how close he was to Carlos at the end of the Grand Prix. It could have very well had an outcome on the winner of this race.
Yeah, Max Verstappen then, as you saw, as soon as Carlos Sainz got round him, he was sort of unleashed into Lando Norris's path, and then all chaos ensued on lap 10, and that was such a pinnacle moment of this race. Turn 4, causing a collision, 10-second penalty, then their turn 8, gaining an advantage off track, not giving that place back again, another 10-second penalty, 20 served in the pit stop for Max Verstappen. Lando Norris on the radio, and obviously that's in the heat of battle, in the heat of the moment, said, this guy is dangerous. What did you make of Max Verstappen's moves and driving and the way that he then handled himself after those penalty seconds?
I would say that the turn 4 incident was sort of quintessential classic Max. He was trying to exploit the same rule that he did at turn 12 in Austin. Lando was a little bit ahead, so I don't think it was going to go his way anyway. The 1 into 7, you could definitely argue was just a bit reckless. At that speed, to be throwing both cars off the racetrack, which, I mean, you have to almost think was his intention going into it, such as the difficulty of trying to make a clean overtake in that corner. And he seems so nonplussed about the penalties. It's like, yeah, okay. I think his first one was said was pretty impressive.
He sounded a bit more perturbed about the second 10-second penalty. But I mean, he still made his way back through the field up to P6 overall, so quite the charge from him. But it is that 10-point swing in the Drivers' Championship to Lando Norris. That's what James Hinchcliffe thinks of the afternoon. Let's hear from both Max Verstappen and Lando Norris now.
Hey Max, it's not very often we see 2 10-second penalties handed out in such quick succession. Just what's your view on those 2?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter because the penalties are given. So that's also honestly not my biggest problem of the race. My biggest problem was that we just had no pace. Just struggling a lot on the tires. Couldn't really attack, and I couldn't follow Ferrari and McLaren.
Were you surprised at the lack of pace in the race today?
I mean, I knew that was going to be tough. It never felt great. So, I knew that it was going to be very difficult to keep them behind.
And on those moves and those penalties, will you do anything different next time around then, given they've been penalised?
maybe get a drink in the pit stop. Yeah, I mean, the engine was off for 20 seconds, so I had enough time.
All right, thanks, Max. Hey Lando, heck of a race, a massive haul of points, and I just felt like today everything went a little bit better for you and you kind of drove super well.
Thanks. Yeah, the race was good, from a pace point of view, from just a strategic point, staying in the race, not getting any contact, keeping the car in one piece, allowed us to stay in until the end and have, very, very strong pace. I would have loved a few more laps, but Carlos drove a very strong race today, and his first stint was very, very strong. It's hard to do a lot in the first stint just because everyone's on the same age tire and it's just a bit of a line, and it's difficult, and clean air at that point is just heavenly. The second stint we were clearly a stronger car, and good to know that we still had a good package today. We probably weren't expecting to be quite as strong, but we're talking small things. It's not like our car today was quicker than them. Some of it can be with management, some of it can be the wind changed. Like the first stint, the wind was in one direction, and I was struggling a little bit. Halfway through the race, the wind changed, and the car just came alive completely. So a bit of it is that as well. It's not just who has a quicker car today or yesterday. That doesn't always matter. But I drove a good race, and I'm happy with the points we got. Ferrari are catching, but I did the best I could.
How happy specifically with the points advantage you got over Max today? And I kind of felt in the battles you've had with him, you've never really had the rubber of the green. It felt like today things went right because it was done right. I always go into the races and I expect good battles and fair battles, and of course, I expect a tough battle with Max. I don't want to complain about it, because I really, this is what I love. I love going into races and knowing like we're going to have a good battle today and he's going to put up a good fight and all of those things. And I look forward to it, but things like today are just a bit too far, in my opinion, and obviously in the stewards' opinions too. And I would say probably the majority of people's opinions. And that's just not how I think many people like to go racing. But I respect Max a lot. I want to race hard against him, but if I didn't do what I did today and avoid him, I'd probably be out of the race, So it's tough, but I played my cards well. I knew what to expect in many ways, and points are good for me at the minute, and we'll just keep our heads down. Great stuff. Thanks, Lando.
Right, so what I can gather and what we can gather from both of those, you sort of had your head in your hands after Max Verstappen's interview, relatively unrepentant and actually saying, well, I could have got myself a margarita in that time, And but Lando Norris actually stating, and I know they're mates off the racetrack, and so they have to find a way to race on the racetrack with that completely out of their minds. Lando Norris saying in the Parc Fermé interview as well, I knew what to expect, and that was not very clean driving. I have respect for Max Verstappen, though. And then repeating that to Lawrence Barretto, who's in the pen just next to us doing those interviews, Max went too far today. It was too much.
There's obviously a tremendous amount of respect between both of those guys. It's hard not to respect Max Verstappen. He is 100%. Incredibly good. But when you look at these battles on the racetrack, especially between the two of them this year, almost every time it ends up with someone going off the racetrack. And when we saw the two Mercedes going wheel to wheel at the end there, Jolien said it. He goes, look, those guys are giving each other room, they're giving each other space, and we're seeing battles go multiple corners, multiple laps. It's not one corner, someone's fired off, and then it's up to the stewards to sort it out. That's actually not as much fun. I gave Lando a lot of credit. He's being very diplomatic in his responses, but it's also forcing him to, I think, really understand a champion's mentality. And today was a drive that really showed me he's getting a lot closer to being ready to win a championship, because he did avoid incidents, he did damage limitation, he still collected like maximum points that were realistically available, and it was just a very mature drive. He kept his cool about him. So yeah, it's tough. At some point he's going to get tired of defending Max for these kinds of things. Max is not going to change. So how you manage the situation at this point, I don't know, but I do think Lando's doing a great job of it so far.
The gap was 57 points coming into this weekend. We had a swing 5 points towards Max Verstappen after Austin with the sprint race win in P3. It is now 47 points. So Lando Norris has clawed back 10 this week, but don't forget, coming in, he did have to outscore Max Verstappen by an average of over 11 per weekend. Now, I am not good enough at maths to have worked out what the new average may be, but I'd imagine it's still around 11 points around. And it's a tough ask because Max Verstappen here had a relatively erroneous race, and he had 20-second penalties to serve, and a car that wasn't very happy here.
Yeah, but he hasn't had a car that's been particularly happy for a few races in a row now. It's gotten better. You know, Singapore was certainly a step in the right direction, and it's been thereabouts since, but it's certainly not been a car that he's been able to dominate with like we've seen. So for the races coming up, it's really tough to tell. I think a track like Brazil is going to suit McLaren very, very well. I think they're going to be the team to beat in a week's time, and that could just blow this thing wide open. There's still, I mean, I'm trying to do rough math, quick math. I think it's like 120 points available with 2 Grand Prix, or 4 Grand Prix and 2 sprints to go. So 47 points, yeah, not small, but not impossible.
It's not, is it? And this is why I love Formula One in 2024. And just when you felt like the race was coming through its final laps and we could just breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, this is the status quo. My goodness me, that Charles Leclerc moment was something else. What a save from him. I mean, I know he then lost P2, but it could have ended his race.
He was going to lose P2 anyway. Yeah. Let's be honest. Norris was catching him so quickly, but for a Formula One car to have a tank slapper like that at those speeds, that close to the wall, but so importantly, once he goes off the racing surface, you see how dirty and dusty it is. There's absolutely no grip. The fact that he was able to stay on board and then just avoid those advertising banners is unreal. But again, credit to Lando. He forced him into this mistake. It meant he didn't have to do anything risky going down into turn 1, even though, again, I think he was going to get it. And yeah, just heads in the hands of the crew there at Ferrari, so close to a complete write-off. It would have been such a blow, not just for the race, but for the constructors' battle as well.
Oh, huge. And of course, he was then pitted and got fastest lap. So was Sergio Perez. He didn't get that. Liam Lawson had it at one point as well. Colapinto had it. Fastest lap is being passed about at the moment like no man's business. But yeah, what a moment there for Charles Leclerc. And I have to say, just as we saw the moment of the mechanics head in hands, the shots from the Ferrari garage were pretty incredible today. All sorts of emotions for them. I'd imagine a fair few for Charles himself. Let's hear from him now.
Hey Charles, that was a heck of a save through that final corner. I know that wasn't what you wanted then, or the pace that you wanted today. Just talk me through how you're feeling right now, Ray.
I mean, happy for the team. Obviously disappointing on my side. It's been a weekend where I was a bit off. Having said that, when you are P3 on a weekend off, it's not that bad. And the points are scored all over the course of the season, and I think it's been a pretty strong season, but sometimes it happens. It hasn't been a very clean weekend for me. FP1, very few laps. FP2, we had few problems, and then I was always on the back foot. So it's the way it is. However, I feel like I've maximized my performance this weekend. There wasn't much more into the car. On the first stint, I felt like I had quite a good pace, but I had to manage temperatures pretty quickly, and then that was it.
Do you think a lot of the struggles that you've had this weekend are circuit specific, and that gives you hope that given you've got the best out of it for P3 here, you should be back on it for Brazil?
Yeah. I mean, there's no big struggles whatsoever. We won last week, and so it's not like we need to worry about anything. But it happens. Sometimes you have off weekends. We'll try and understand why we were not on our top form. But again, we shouldn't exaggerate everything. It's qualifying has been more difficult than what I hoped. Race, I wasn't in the situation to push, and with the temperatures and everything, it was tricky. P3 is the best we could do, and I'm happy with that.
Great stuff. Thanks, Charles.
There we go, P3 for Charles Leclerc today, an extra point for fastest lap as well for Ferrari, and they have closed the gap to McLaren to 29 points. They have jumped ahead of Red Bull. Ferrari now sit second overall. Could they pick up their first Constructors' title since 2008? Good stats.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
A what?
A Coke.
A Coke, sure. I'll get you one later.
All right.
Absolutely. Mercedes, we were saying how much we were all enjoying what was a really clean, good wheel-to-wheel battle between the two of them. Interesting situation with George Russell's front wing. It seemed to just collapse on himself, he's saying. I think he also mentioned that Ferrari and McLaren have done an amazing job recently. Saying that, Mercedes was second best team today, considering their car is horribly unpredictable. It's not been a bad day for Mercedes, and that battle was something we really enjoyed watching.
Yeah, first of all, you love it when cars are allowed to race like that, especially when it's teammates being allowed to race like that. You heard the call over the radio, hey George, this is a straight up fight, just give each other room, but it's, it's all fair play. And you saw a ton of respect between those two guys. George did have that damage. Not sure exactly when in the race that happened. That certainly would have affected performance, especially through that middle sector in those high-speed corners. But just great drive from Hamilton. He's been so hit and miss, so hot and cold with this race car, especially since they introduced those upgrades. And this is kind of how it all was unfolding through the back and forth, side by side. Again, just a lot of respectful racing room. And then eventually Hamilton able to get it done. But it was kind of a race on their own. They didn't have the pace of the cars in front. They weren't really under threat from the cars behind. So it was it's a good thing they were closely matched because they kept each other entertained. If they had been separated, they both would have had very boring afternoons. So I'm happy for them that they got to go play a little bit.
Yeah, P4 and P5 then for Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. That Mercedes still seeks to find some sort of operating window that they can get their car into to pick up hopefully some more podiums, even a win by the end of this season. Speaking of winners, let's hear from Carlos Sainz.
Carlos, congratulations, an absolute masterclass out there. Just talk me through your emotions right now.
Super emotional, I've been wanting this win for a long time, and I was determined to win one more before the end of the season. And coming up to Mexico, maybe I was a bit too pushy on the comments, saying that Mexico was a good opportunity to win, and put myself under a bit of pressure there. But actually, it worked. I was feeling it because I felt like I could be strong here. I knew my parents were coming, my two best friends, my girlfriend. I was going to be obviously under a lot of support here, and yeah, I felt like it was a good chance to do it in front of all the Mexican fans, and I definitely was determined, and I think it looked like it in the race with the move on Max, and yeah, we made it happen.
It just feels like you've been alive all weekend. Not that you haven't at other races, but it just felt like the car and you were like at one. And what does this mean for you from that perspective?
Well, it just shows that when I have a good car underneath me and I feel good with the car, I have a lot of potential to unleash, and I can be very, very strong. And yeah, this weekend I felt I was always the strongest guy on track in both quali and race pace. And yeah, even if I didn't get the best of starts, I made sure that I was making good use of it, and yeah, made it happen.
Great stuff. Congrats,
Thank
Carlos.
you.
Thanks.
And our most recent race winner has just walked through, and much to the delight of the fans behind as well, because look, it was not the Spanish speaker that perhaps the fans here were fully backing, but he is the king of Mexico. Sergio Perez had an absolute uphill battle to climb, didn't he, after qualifying yesterday, which hadn't gone his way. P18, he started today, and then he had this most almighty charge. He had an incredibly eventful race, actually. If you take it back to the start, it was a 5-second penalty for starting over his
out of position.
Out of position, absolutely. And then he was suddenly up to P12. You think, right, Perez is on one here. The crowd are going nuts. And then the battle with Liam Lawson is where it all came unstuck, and ultimately damage as well. How disappointed are you for Sergio Perez and his race today and what we saw out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weekend to forget, isn't it? And it's so tough when it happens at a home Grand Prix, especially with the kind of season that Checo's having. And he had that great start. It was so funny when they came over the radio to tell him about the penalty. And, it was, did he get the great start because it was good driving or because he was out of position? Well, can't we call it a little bit of both, right? I mean, he definitely had an advantage from starting further up, but it was a great start, genuinely. But yeah, the contact there with Liam, you can't help but think, was he racing him a little bit harder? Were they racing each other a little bit harder, just knowing the dynamic there between the two, the potential swap that could be coming for next year? It's tough, but ultimately it damaged Checo's car and really took him out of contention for getting any further up the field. And yeah, devastating for him and for the fans here.
Yeah, and for a second consecutive year, he's had a torrid weekend here in Mexico in front of what he has said are some of the best fans. And look, as you mentioned, they're racing each other really, really hard. Ultimately, Checo then has side pod damage, and cars simply couldn't perform with that kind of damage. Potentially some animosity between the two of them, shall we say. We'll see how it rumbles on, though, to Brazil. Another Spanish speaker who had a day to forget, Fernando Alonso. On his 400th Grand Prix weekend, suddenly camera pans to the pit lane. It's Fernando Alonso being brought in, box, retiring the car. Here it is. What disappointment for him. And it was a brake issue for Aston Martin.
Yeah, obviously, mechanical issues happen, especially here. There's this racetrack is so hard on engines and so hard on brakes. unfortunately, the Aston, was a casualty of that challenge today, and not the way he wanted to end the 400th. But look, he's got several more to go. He still has another 50 Grand Prix in him, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, he really does. We're going to welcome in now our next guest. Ruth Buscombe-Davie is joining us. Ruth, what a race. What did you make of it?
Well, for a one-stopper, it was pretty exciting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
phenomenal. And really, I loved the difference in pace and performance between where the Ferraris was really strong on that medium tyre. The McLarens had no answer. At that point, it looked like it was set in stone. And then actually, both for Lando and for Oscar, the performance on that hard tyre, as you see, as our P2 man walks behind us, causing a ruckus. We should tell him the post show's on. It was so interesting to see the difference between two. And then like a nice little kind of Mercedes intra-team battle going on in the middle. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then some more FIA stewarding documents to boot.
Yeah, a fair lot of work for the stewards to be getting on with after that one, which... Yeah, it'll be a point of contention rolling on, won't it? Who's your standout today? Carlos Sainz was driver of the day, as voted by you guys, but who for you, or what for you was a standout moment or driver today?
I honestly think Carlos has been my driver of the weekend.
Yeah.
Ever since free practice. I'm so impressed by his ability to perform, even under the pressure of knowing that, this is one of the best opportunities on paper that Ferrari have left on the calendar. Realistically, he's not going to be in a position to be winning races next season, at least. We'd love that, but I don't think that's going to happen. And just the mental strength to be able to perform at your absolute highest level. He's been on it all weekend. You talk to his friends, his family, they're all kind of buzzing. And he was so fast, right out of the box, FP1. Qualifying, a lot of drivers made mistakes. He didn't at all. And the race, I love that overtake, I have to say. I like the fact that we were saying, he surprised Max, but he surprised himself. In that interview, he's like, yeah, I was just annoyed at myself, so I just did it. So it reminded me of a Daniel Ricciardo 2014 style overtake. You just go for it. So yeah, he's my man of Mexico.
Yeah, and I'd imagine such deep emotion for him as well, knowing that he's got 4 Grand Prix left for Ferrari, and he's in this form, and the team are in the form they're in as well. So much complexity. As we head to our final 4 Grand Prix weekends, and 2 more sprint races to boot as well. Both titles well and truly up for grabs. This is how things look then in Sao Paulo for the Brazilian Grand Prix next time out. So weekend warm at 5:30, 11:15 for FP1. Sprint qualifying, of course, it's a sprint weekend. They come thick and fast as well now. Sprint qualifying, we will be on air at 3:15 building up to that one. 10:20 for the sprint race, 2:30 for qualifying, and then the race, of course, coming on Sunday. A sprint weekend. After this, at the end of a triple. It is relentless, this Formula One season, but I'm loving it. Ruth, your thoughts after Mexico and ahead of Brazil?
Well, a little bird has told me that the resurfacing in Brazil is going to make it as spicy as the tacos in the stand down there. So I think it is going to be one that we absolutely cannot miss.
Oof, I love it. James?
I mean, look, that track has thrown up so many great battles over the years, whether it was in Grand Prix format, sprint format. We've seen some great comeback drives. We've seen champions crowned there. There's a lot of history in Brazil. I can't wait to get down there. I think the racing's going to be awesome. I think we're going to see maybe a shift in momentum. It seems like a McLaren track to me. Maybe Ferrari can keep this going, who knows? But again, another sprint, end of a triple. Everybody's tired, but everybody's excited.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to be watching that one from home, enjoying it like a fan from my sofa. Will Buxton will be back with you for that one, and I'm sure it'll be as spicy as this Mexico City Grand Prix has been. Sao Paulo Grand Prix coming up then. Big thanks to Ruth for joining us, to Hinch, to Lawrence Barretto, to Alex, Jolien and Sam, and to Marietta roaming about the paddock for us. What a race, what a victory for Carlos Sainz. Ferrari well and truly on the hunt for the Constructors' title. You don't want to miss the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and we'll see you next weekend.